Here. Okay, so obviously we all have brains and we all want to learn about how to keep them. Right now, the biggest fear in the world is not the fear of public speaking any longer. The fear is that we're not going to have our brain or our consciousness or our cognitive thoughts once we get older, and we're going to be a burden to our family. So I'm going to show you some information that we've been sharing with the likes of Duke University is one of our partners. We have 12 different universities doing studies. So everything I'm going to show you, we don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to show you it. If you come to our booth afterwards, we do have one of our research books there, and you can download it as a PDF. We have 12 studies we just published this last year. So we'll be able to show you what's going on with in the brain, and I think it's pretty exciting. First of all, most people don't realize that the brain is like on and off. We're either in survivor mode, what just happened over the last 2 years. They've actually shown that heightened cortisol levels can shrink the brain up to 3/4 of an inch. So when you think about that, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but cortisol is a suppressant. So all of those feel-good neurotransmitters are suppressed when you're in high cortisol, which means it leads to depression, anxiety, fear, all the things that obviously are poor for your health. So we want to turn the brain on and get it into what we call the thriving brain. Now, the thriving brain, for some of you that are doctors in the room, you would know that as your parasympathetic system. And of course, the survivor brain is the sympathetic system. We've coined a term that we've started using in the lab and with our doctors, that we have 2,400 clinics, so when I'm pulling together data, it's not from just one source. It's from all the different clinics that are using it in different technologies. But most people are in what we call sympathetic escape, meaning that their nervous system gets locked in this fear and they start to believe that's normal. They wake up in the morning stressed, they go to sleep stressed. 2/3 of the world isn't sleeping. I know Dr. Fab earlier said 100 million Americans, but it's actually more than that. When you think about when we talk about sleep, and I'm going to talk about that, that's super important, of course, for brain health and for brain function. The main reason, how many in here have read the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Cancer? Anybody heard about that? I recommend this to all of my clients, because it helps them to understand why we are different than other animals. We have consciousness. We think about things, right? If you're the slowest zebra this morning in the Serengeti, when you get up, you're going to be lunch. So you don't want to be the slowest zebra. You want to be at least the second slowest zebra so that you make it through the day. But if you watch the video that's on YouTube, it's pretty shocking, and I usually show that to my clients. It shows a zebra being chased by a lion, and almost on cue, they stop at the same time after running for about 3 minutes. They'll stop, and the lion could just reach up and grab the zebra and eat it, but it's like they gave up the game, and the lion goes back and sits in the shade, gets its wits together and says, I'm going to get a slower zebra next time. The zebra doesn't even miss a beat, puts its head down and starts eating grass right away. Now, I don't know about you, but I have clients, and they usually come in about Friday at 5 o'clock, that they're going to tell me about the stress they had 3 weeks ago, that they already told me about last week and the week before, because they keep, carrying it on and on. The zebras don't have a meeting where they get to go to and say, I've survived the lion 3 times this week, and they all get badges and pendants. But as humans, we do this because emotion drives behavior, and they're getting a payoff for that behavior. So sometimes negative behavior is bad for us, but we get some attention for it, or maybe we want to get sometimes we just want to figure out, why is this happening to me? And it's like, because the subconscious is no more educated than a 4th grader, you got to just say, because. There's and that's what the whole thing is about. How do we get rid of that? How do we get rid of the stress? And when I talk about pain hurts, but stress kills, is because pain, people can go get rid of their pain. They can find a way to usually resolve that. And that's one of the biggest problems we have in wellness right now. People think that pain is an indicator of health or not health. When you get rid of pain, is the last thing that arrives in the nervous system and the first thing that leaves. So if you're using pain as a signal for health, especially brain health, it's not a very good signifier, because you could have a lot of things wrong and not have any pain. Just want to bring that to your attention. Now, I don't know about you, but these 2 people don't look like they're having the same experience, right? One looks like they're terrified. The other is having a great time. I'm sure that the one on the right smiling there talked her friend into getting on the roller coaster, and I don't know if they'll be friends afterwards. But this is the way life works, right? We can each experience 2 different things, and it's going to affect our bodies differently. Now, the person on the right is getting hit with about $30,000 to $40,000 worth of brain chemicals that's making them feel good. The person on the left is getting hit with $30,000 to $40,000 worth of neurochemicals that's destroying their body. When the Buddha over 5,000 years ago said, "He who angers you conquers you," medical science has proven this right. What I mean by that is when you get angry at somebody, in order for you to get angry, upset, irritated with somebody, you have to create the physiological representation of that within yourself. Meaning that you have to get angry, your body has to create those cells that actually destroy you from the inside out. When Jesus, 2,000 years ago said, "Hey, love your enemy," what he's saying is you get yourself into that state of love and grace. And what happens is we know at that level, when you're in a state of gratitude and love and grace, the body just works better. How many times have you been in love or you've been around people you like and maybe other people are getting sick, but you have a heightened state of immunity during that time? The studies show that those people who are positive thinkers have a much higher immune function than those people who are negative thinkers. So it's always good to be optimistic about what's going on for you. When we talk about cortisol, this is the main reason that we got into brain fitness. And when you think about the BrainTap machine, I could go after study showing you what happens. I'm going to mention a few of them here, but we don't have time. We have 20 minutes to kind of compress everything into one place. But cortisol is very damaging to the body. The hippocampus is that part of the brain that takes long-term memories and makes them memories that you can recall in short term. They take short-term memories and make long-term memories. So if that hippocampus gets damaged, you're not going to have a very good functioning memory. And also, the more stress, the more anxious, the more anxiety you have, the more the two hemispheres are going to get out of balance. So we actually had to create specific training sessions to speed up the left hemisphere over the right hemisphere. One of the studies that we did was with women 55, 65 years old. I'm just going to give you the high level of this. 6 weeks on the protocol, 3 times a day doing BrainTap. They were all diagnosed with dementia. They all had dysregulated brains. They all took cognitive scores. Everything across the board, they lined up, these women had dementia. Within 6 weeks, they all were taken off the dementia scale because we were able to balance their hemispheres without them doing nothing more than taking 3 short naps a day, using the equipment to train the brain. They were giving no nutrition. Of course, if you gave nutrition, it would have been even better. We believe that nutrition is the number one thing because you can't outthink a bad diet, unless you're an alchemist and you can transform sugar into health. You've got to eat well. But we have to get our bodies moving and breathing. So that's part of it. So when we think about stress, what happens under stress? Anger, resentment, every negative emotion, there's a few things that are very constant. One is lack of breathing. If you have little kids, like I didn't notice it as much with my children, but my grandchildren, when they come running up, if they're angry or upset, if I tell them to breathe, they go ballistic because they know as soon as they start breathing, they lose their anger. So if we can learn to breathe through things and get the body going, we'll be much better. In the study, what we showed was the main thing I want to point out is we had 49% more neuroplasticity in 6 weeks. What that means is energy in the brain. And I'm going to explain that in just a minute. We need to get energy into the brain in the form of ATP production for the brain to heal itself because it's self-healing. But if you don't have energy, you can take the world's greatest supplements. If you're stressed out, one thing I can guarantee you, you have very expensive urine. We did a study in Provo, Utah, where people were doing IV therapy for brain function, for addiction, and they're able to measure how much the body assimilates, digests, and uses. When somebody's using their cell phone or they're using BrainTap, 30% more nutrition absorbed by the body when they were doing BrainTap over looking at their cell phones. When you look at your cell phone, you're creating a stress response. Every little thing, it's a dopamine response. Dopamine is produced by beta, which is a conscious brain we're all in right now. You need that. That's why you're looking for something to say aha to, or if we were at church, you'd say amen. Those are dopamine hits, so the people get excited and they start yelling those things out. The other is it's going to reduce brain function. When you have high cortisol, you're going to have a major risk of dementia. The main reason is the stress of the brain. Everyone stand up for a minute. I want to just take you through a little exercise, just so you understand what I'm talking about. While you're standing, just like this, I want you to just balance on one foot and do a circle. While you're doing that circle with that foot in the air, write your name. Okay, a little after, that's all I wanted to hear. Go ahead and sit down. So that laughter was actually your brain going through a neurological storm. It was deciding, are you going to be left brain dominant or right brain dominant? How many of you found that you could write your name, but you looked down at your circle and it was going analog? Right? How many found you could write your name, but you forgot how to spell? You could do the circle, but you forgot how to write your name, right? This happens in schools, right, to children when they get a test. They call it test anxiety. They get locked out of their knowledge, but it happens every day to people under stress in the world. Now, if you're under stress for a period of time, that hemisphere that's been shut down, the brain, to conserve energy, just keeps it shut down, and it starts to dysregulate. That's why it's so important to do things like yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, or even dance. I tell people that even just close the curtains, turn on the music, and dance, because we got to get our bodies moving and breathing to get our nervous system working. Why I'm mentioning the nervous system is 70% of your nervous system is in your brain. So we need to activate that nervous system and get it working for you. Now, one of the things we tell people, in order to get real results, we have to have performance-driven systems, right? So when we're talking about BrainTap and what it does for you, we're going to help you perform better. We're going to give you more energy, which we can actually evaluate. We have a tool over there called the NeuroCheck, which I had created for us, that in one of the studies showed a 39.8% improvement of neurological function with one session on BrainTap. So you all have that opportunity this week, today, to go over and try that, and they can have you do that. We're going to have, it has anti-aging properties, because the more you can limit cortisol, stress hormones are the biggest reason we age so quickly. If we can get rid of those stress hormones, we're going to have much better shape there. We're going to give you greater control. You get what you rehearse in life, not what you intend. Okay, so we have to rehearse those things, get your physiology and your psychology to match so that you're getting the results that you want in your life. And then what we say is we're going to make it easy. We're going to put you at greater ease, because most people are at a state of dis-ease. Now, what does this mean for you? We're going to help people get peace of mind is what we're really looking for. How many people would love to have peace of mind? I mean, that's what people are looking for. If we can give our clients or patients these different features, they're going to pay you any amount of money. Money is not going to be a factor. It's going to be, you mean you can give me greater performance, greater energy, greater anti-aging potential, help me control my life, and give greater ease. These are the things we're looking at as far as a wellness solution. What I find over the years, and we work with a lot of clinics around the world, and a lot of them have the different components, but we always say it's thoughts, traumas, or toxins which are causing problems in the body. If you can get rid of the interference, the body is self-healing, self-replicating. But very few people do anything about their thoughts. So we need to keep those thoughts positive, keep them moving in the direction of the goal that they want. This is a study I was talking about that we actually, next month, we're going to be presenting this to the National Institute of Health. They accepted 3 of our studies for presentation to the International Congress. And the reason that this was accepted was during stress of the pandemic, we were able to show people at home who were doing stress reduction protocols were actually still getting good brain function. Those people that were not doing anything but watching the news. You know, the worst thing you can do for brain function is, I think, watch broadcast news. Anybody in here too happy right now? Because I do have a cure for that too. You just turn on the news. You're going to be in despair in less than 5 minutes, right? They're going to tell you all the things that are going on wrong in the world. So we need to keep our options open. But this is a 20-minute session people do once a day. They can do it more than that, of course. In clinical settings, we have them come in at least twice a week, because we found that it lasts there's a halo effect of about 72 hours while you're rebuilding and getting the nervous system back online to function correctly. Now, how does this all work? The mechanism of action. When you walked into this room, you personally have a vibratory frequency. They can measure it. They can measure every person in this room, tell you what your frequency response is. It's not a metaphysical concept any longer. If you were on a spaceship, if you were on Alperin's spaceship coming to this experience, we would have been coming toward Earth. The Earth would have a frequency response of 0.05 to 100. There's something else in our world that does the same thing. The human brain has a frequency response of 0.05 to 100. So you got delta to gamma. So you have these different brainwave frequencies. What our brain's doing all the time is going out into our environment and saying, what is this environment like? Oh, this is a safe place. It's using the primitive brain, the amygdala, or what we would call the reticular activating system, to evaluate our environment. If it's safe, then everything's cool. But if not, it turns on our sympathetic system and says, let's be on guard. Let's see what. And what happens is, unfortunately, in our world today, we're on guard too much. We're not able to relax and get into those flow states. And so, but when we go out in nature, like how many people like the ocean here? Like going to the ocean, sitting by the ocean. That ocean, that body of water has a frequency response of 10 hertz. 10 hertz happens to be alpha. When you are in an alpha state, which is a meditative state, they call it idle for the brain, that 10 hertz frequency. When you're in that state, your brain literally tells your gut to start making acetylcholine. Now, there's 54 different neurotransmitters. We're not going to go through all of them, but this one happens to be involved in the feel-good, fall-in-love neurotransmitter. How many of you have ever been on a romantic getaway and you started a fire? Anybody ever done that? Like have a fire, you sit by the fire and you do that? Well, you can get a little frisky after that because the fire also flickers at 10 hertz frequency. Your brain is matching that, and you're going to get this it's not quite a date rape drug, but it's going to get people in the mood because you're going to be swimming in this neurological soup that is us, and the environment created it. So if we want to create the environment, there's big movement right now in psychedelics and plant-based medicine. Here in Dallas, we did a study with Dr. Rosenthal where we took a psilocybin in BrainTap, and we had half the people in the study did not want to take a psilocybin. So we did brain maps of them while they were on psilocybin. They had high degree of gamma. So we created a whole series based on that protocol that we saw in the brains of people on these trips. People started having a psilocybin trips without a psilocybin because our brain creates GABA, and it does it in the theta brainwave. Why is that important? GABA is the precursor to DMT. Your brain creates DMT. So if you have the right precursor, you will have those mystical experiences, those kind of out-of-body experiences. The unfortunate part is most people run around at 18 cycles. This is fear, frustration, and anxiety. This is our cities, our news broadcasts. So we want to get them out of that. Now, just to make sure you understand, Kansas City Sport, which is one of the professional teams we work with, we're present in almost every professional sports team. But what they did is we showed them recovery is so important. So whatever you do as far as your health and well-being, if you don't have a good program to recover, you're not maximizing that efficiency. So what we did with them was, these are professional athletes, the professional soccer team. We showed, if you want to measure the response of a professional athlete, you do a HRV before their practice, HRV after their practice. 4 hours later, they should be back to their baseline. That means that they didn't overtrain, they didn't burn themselves out. Well, most of these guys were going home and having a beer. So we showed them when you have one beer after a workout, it takes 12 hours to get back to your baseline. If they did a BrainTap session right after practice, they got back there in 20 minutes. So what we showed them was you can go back, you can recover faster by getting your brain in shape as well as your physical bodies. That's why we started calling it brain fitness. So we want to help people think better, sleep better, and perform better. And we don't want you to take you can go out there and try it for yourself to make sure, because we know that you're going to feel something physiologically from it. Seminole College, which is one of the main universities we work with in that Florida Atlantic, these were elite level athletes. They had won the national championship 3 years in a row now, and they all use BrainTap. If you go to their website, they have a web page for BrainTap because they use it to recruit college athletes because we work with their mental wellness programs. And they also do some neurofeedback as well with it. But what we showed was we could improve their alpha activity, which is their focus and concentration. These were elite athletes to begin with, 300%. So imagine, these were already people that were gifted. They were, elite level athletes. So your brain can improve no matter where you're at right now. It's kind of like the game of golf. No matter how good you do, you think you could do better the next time you go out. If you're a golfer, you know what I'm talking about. So I want to show you just a couple more things. This is the typical brain that we see before we scan it. Now, if you had QEEG, you would see both hemispheres. We're just showing you brain dominance. This is somebody's brain that has inflammation or a traumatic brain injury. Over the 30,000 brain scans we've done in the last 10 years, I would say at least 70 to 80% of those people were over 50% delta, which meant that their brain was very inflamed. They had a lot of issues. Now, this was after a 20-minute session. This is almost the perfect brainwave. Ann Weiss, who was part of our team at Light and Sound Research, she wrote a book called The Perfect Brainwave, and she used a product called the Mind Mirror to do this back then. There's a lot better equipment now. But she went around the country and she measured people's brains that were really good, captains of industries, sports, and everything. And what we found was 45% beta, 30% alpha is about the perfect mix. One brainwave is not that important. Like when people, they always go, I just did this meditation for alpha. Well, if you have too much alpha, you're going to have hyperactivity. If you don't have enough alpha, you're going to have autism. You know, we've seen that over and over again. If you don't, most adults are missing theta, by the way. That's why they don't sleep. They don't have the precursor GABA to go to sleep. And right now in the drug world, that's the coup de grace. They're trying to figure out how they can pharmaceutically create gamma, or GABA, which you produce yourself. So this is my last slide, but hopefully I won't shock you too much, but back when my dad was a Silva instructor, it was called the Silva method. There's millions of people still doing that today. So I grew up on brain machines using GSR to train my brain even at 12, 13 years old. And we used to say we were light. That was kind of a metaphysical concept people would say. Now I'm here to tell you that science has proven that you are light. You actually, right now, when Dr. Fab, if you were in his talk earlier, he was talking about 20% or whatever epigenetics. They know that 99% of what makes you up changes every 40 seconds based on photic light exchange. So the most underprescribed nutrient on earth is light. Whether it be red light therapy, BrainTap, all of those things, your body needs light more than any other nutrient on earth, because if you don't have that light energy in the form of ATP, you can't process, metabolize, and use all of those great nutrition that you're using. So think of light as just another nutrient that you need. You can't get it from our sun, unfortunately, because they've geoengineered our atmosphere. They've done studies with people on the top of buildings in New York City. They could not produce enough vitamin D. They were out there all day. So you can't do it. So you have to supplement some way, but you can do it with light. You can, especially with red light therapy is one of the best. That's why we have the red light. But one thing to add, anybody here ever heard of a guy named Tom Brady? Okay, right. TB12, he has clothing that's called TB12 recovery wear. That clothing was designed by my science officer. And the reason he designed that for Tom Brady is everyone in this room, you are broadcasting infrared light. You don't see it because we don't see infrared light. But every person in this room is broadcasting between 800 and 860 nanometer light to everybody else in this room, and it holds information. It's not just shedding with this. When they talked about the vaccine, the reason they were shedding was light was carrying the code of that virus. You are carrying the code of you and sharing that with everybody in this room. That light, now what we decided was you can measure that light. We know somebody who's in gratitude, peace, and love is generating 200 times more light than those people in fear, anxiety, and frustration, and illness. So we need to turn up our light, start sharing that with the world, and know that now he put ceramics in the clothing that reflect back infrared light. So you can use your own energy. But if you're a healthcare provider, when you walk in the room to heal that person, that's why your intention in that healing is so important. Probably more important than the treatment that you're giving, because you're sharing your light with them. So I want to thank you for sharing your light with me and letting me share a little bit about BrainTap with you, and hopefully we see you out there and we can increase that voltage today and get you more energy. Thank you.